So I'm going to start off with this really, really simple question just to get my point across. And then we're going to move on to GCSE practice. So what I do want you to do with this video, yes, it's about worded problems, but there will be a lot of exam questions. So we'll give you that practice. I don't want you to go feeling overwhelmed if you're not sure about something. What I do want you to take out is the tactic or the techniques to help you answer the question. I'm going to break it down. Any worded problem comes down to a simple maths calculation. Okay, so you've learned the calculations in school, whether it's a percentage of something, whether it's a fraction of something. Worded problems, just go back into that. For example, if I look at this example over here, 3 times 2, we know that's going to be 6. If I look at the worded problem of it, 3 people go to the cinema, tickets cost £2 each. How much do they pay in total? That goes back to 3 times 2 equals 6. So don't let words get in the way of your maths because you're very, very able. You just need to somehow get rid of all those words and break it down into that simple calculation that's going to help you answer that question. So I tried to pick questions that will give you a range of worded problems so you can use the techniques from them. I've kind of split them up into 4 types, but you'll notice that you kind of use the same techniques throughout most of them, but I want to give you different opportunities to see different kinds of questions and then pick up a trick here and there. Okay, now let's get to the juicy stuff. Type 1, there's 4 types. Type 1, the line by line, keep it simple. You've got a lot of information and you want to take it step by step. You don't want to get yourself overwhelmed. That's the most important part. I'm not going to do the whole question. I'm just going to do it line by line. I'm going to make it as simple as possible for myself. When you see a question, there's 2 things that you want to consider. It might just be a piece of information. If it's a piece of information, just put a line underneath it. You acknowledge its existence in this paper. Okay. The second question you ask yourself is there any maths that I can do? And if there is any maths that you can do, you do it. Then we will look at what the question wants, because 9 times out of 10, once you do it that way, you will realize, actually, I've already answered the question that they wanted me to answer, or I'm just like this close to answering that question. So let's go. Here is my juicy question. This is from the Edexcel 2022 paper. Ignore this box for now. We're going to use it. See this question over here? There is a lot of information there. Okay, there's a lot. So when you look at this question, some people will be like, oh my gosh, can't be bothered. This is what you're going to do. You're not going to look at the whole thing. You're going to cover each section. You'll do with your hand, but I got a fancy little box here. So like this. And then you're going to take it line by line. Eleanor spent 120 minutes at a sports center. Can I do any maths with that? No, it's just information. So she spent 120 minutes at a sports center. Now I look at the next line. Work with me. He played badminton for 50 minutes. Okay. Just information. So I'm just going to put a line underneath it there. Now, I look at the next line. She used the swimming pool for 1/6 of the 120 minutes. Can I do some maths there? Oh, yes, I can. She used the swimming pool, 1/6 of 120. So next to it, I'm going to write 1/6. Instead of off, I'm going to write times and then 120. And then I'll work out 1/6 out times 120. I won't go to the calculations of it, but I will get 20 minutes. Now, guess what? I've already got a mark. Without even doing the rest of the question, I've guaranteed myself a mark in my bank, okay? So use the swimming pool. We know now for 20 minutes. Let's check the next sentence. She used the gym for 20% of the 120 minutes. So let's do that. 20% of the 120 minutes. So 20% of 120, 10% is 12, 20% is 24. So she used the gym for 24 minutes. Now I'm going to look at the next step. Then spent the rest of the 120 minutes in the cafe. So can we do any maths with that? Yes. Let's see what we're going to do over here. A bit smaller. So how would I then be able to answer that part? Well, how long was she in the cafe for out of the 120 minutes? Let's check. So she did 50 minutes badminton, did 20 minutes in the swimming pool. She did 24 minutes in the gym. Now we're going to add them up. 94 minutes. She's already done 94 minutes. The rest of them, you want to do the leftover. So 120 minus your 94 minutes, cafe, 26 minutes. Okay, so she spent the rest of them in the cafe, 26 minutes. Now, if we look at what the question actually asked us, work out the total time in minutes that Eleanor spent in that cafe. We've already answered it. She spent 26 minutes in the cafe. You see, so this question is worth 4 marks. Now, notice doing it that way, number one, it stops me from being overwhelmed. I'll cover it with my hand. I'll look at the first line, and then I'll cover it again. I'll look at the second line, third, fourth, fifth. Then I will read the question. Okay. You'll notice you've either answered it or you're about to answer with just one small step. The other thing that I really, really want to stress with worded problems is this. Just make sure that you're using the units that they ask you for in the questions. Look at the total time in minutes that Eleanor spent in the cafe. Luckily for us, we were already working in minutes and our answers in minutes. Be very wary if they say work at the time in hours, because then you would have to convert the 26 minutes to hours. Okay, so just bear those small things in mind, because that's where people could maybe drop marks off or not. If I look at the mark scheme over here, I only get 1 mark for the correct answer. So if I wrote 26, I would get 1 mark for that. And a lot of the times, you don't just get the mark, you still have to do the other steps. I'm sorry if this part is boring, but it's just really, really good to see at least just one. Notice 20 minutes, if I got 20 and I did that process, I get a mark. So notice if I didn't do the whole question and I just did that line that we did right at the beginning, I've already got a mark. Now I get another mark for the next one. 20 out of 100 times 120, 24. I get a mark for that. 120 minus all of that, and I get 24 over there. That's that. This one over here and that. I get a mark for that. And then my final mark is for the 26 minutes. Imagine 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, you looked at it and like, no way am I even going to bother with that. 0, guaranteed 0. Second scenario, I look at this question and I do 1 line, 1 mark. I do the second one, 2 marks. I couldn't do the rest. Okay, that's fine. Move on and then come back to it at the end of the test. Okay, let's look at an even juicier question. And the reason why I say it's even juicy is because it's filled with a lot of information like this, but then it's got these 2 dots that people look at and they're like, what on earth? Can't even be bothered to look at it. Why? Because it's got these 2 little dots over there, ratio. So it looks like something that I know how to answer, but it's also got a bit of ratio. We're going to do it in the same exact way. If you're aiming for the highest grade, 9, obviously you're going to be looking out for every single mark and you'll be trying your best to get every single mark. Okay, if you're aiming for something a bit lower, let me just put this out there. If you're aiming for, let's say, 4-5, don't just aim for 4-5, because in your mind you're thinking 4-5, okay, so I don't need to do these answers, but then your correct answers might not be correct because there'll be mistakes here and there. So if you're aiming for something, always aim for way higher. Now, the point that I was trying to make is this. With these worded problems, don't look at a question and think, that looks really difficult. I just don't have the energy for it. Instead, how about you bank as many marks as you can with things that you already know? And then you never know, you might actually be able to answer the rest of the question. And a lot of the times with these worded questions, you might not be able to get it straight away. But once you do one step, you'll be like, oh, light bulb moment, I could do this part. Oh, I think this might work. Okay. Even if you think you're not sure, write it down. Worst case scenario, you could cross it out. You're not going to lose any marks for that, are you? So a delivery company has a total of 160 cars and VAT. I've actually done this question, so I'm going to do it now. I will not get overwhelmed just because they put 2 dots on top of it. Now, the second type of questions are the ones where you're expected to know some kind of formula. Where's my juicy question? How do I do this? Huh? Can you move? أنا بحب أضيع وقت